This episode of Bev's Video Kingdom is brought to you by the cocktail known as an Aqua Velva. Do you like sitting by yourself at the bar? Do you appreciate being left alone while you are grabbing a drink after a long week? Aqua Velva is a drink that will leave you friendless and rolling solo at the club. Nothing says don't trust that dude like a blue umbrella drink next to some buffalo wings during Sunday night football at your local dive bar. Named after the pungent, bright blue aftershave, Aqua Velva packs the same punch to your taste buds with equal parts rum and vodka, lemon lime soda, and blue curacao liqueur for the attention-grabbing hue it's known for. Tell the bartender Bev sent you and get your first 4 Aqua Velvas on us and enjoy the 3.5-day hangover that you completely deserve. If you're alone and feeling blue at the bar, let Aqua Velva keep it that way. Aqua Velvas are the preferred drink of the Bev's Video Kingdom crew because they are delicious.
Nothing says come sit by me like a big blue drink with an umbrella in it.
Chunk of pineapple on the rim. You gonna eat that pineapple?
I can brag your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing. Woo!
Welcome to Bev's Video Kingdom. We're walking around Bev's Video Kingdom and we're looking for a thriller. We're looking for something that's going to build some tension. We're looking around the room and we're thinking, what's going to make Nate a little bit uncomfortable? That's mainly what drives most of my picks. How are we going to make Nate uncomfortable?
What's scary?
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be scary to make Nate uncomfortable. That's the best part about this. That's the best part about this pick. So this week, my pick. This is Zach, by the way. We went with Zodiac directed by David Fincher. A girthy 2 hours and 37 minutes. I love this movie. We got Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., one of my least favorite actors, Mark Ruffalo. The Hulk just doesn't do it for me, but he's good in this movie. He's pretty darn good. This movie cost $65 million to make and grossed $85 million. Not exactly a big success as far as we're looking at Fincher's catalog. This movie was released in 2007. It's based on the book by cartoonist Robert Graysmith, who's played by Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie. Graysmith's account is pretty universally described as pretty accurate. He has some what people would call preconceived notions about who the killer is, and this movie kind of alludes to that. There's been some new late-breaking news just in the past couple months that we're going to get into in a little bit here. Zodiac killer kind of gripped the Western United States or the world, depending on how you look at it. It was a huge deal. 1969, he came out and basically claimed that he had done a couple of murders in California and went on from there. He's sending letters to 3 different newspapers and telling the editors that they must run his letters on the front page or he is going to kill more people. Like I said, gripped the nation. A bunch of us have talked to a bunch of our family and some older generation people, and they remember this stuff. They're huge. It was a really, really big deal. This movie, it builds a bunch of tension. It doesn't really come out and say exactly who the killer is. There's no payoff. There's no crescendo. It's just kind of a tension build all the way through. I really dig it. Like I said, came out in 2007. This kind of came out after Fight Club, after Panic Room. His movie that he did after this was Benjamin Button, which is just drivel. Terrible movie. And then it was kind of a downtime for him for a couple years. And then he comes back with Social Network, Dragon Tattoo. He did the series House of Cards, Gone Girl, Mindhunter, Mank, a bunch of really successful stuff. one of the, he's kind of one of the better directors, or one of the more revered directors of our generation, I would say, if we're being realistic about it. Sort of a polarizing figure. There's a lot of people that don't dig his stuff. I think all of us kind of universally like most of his things that he did. I'm curious what you guys thought about this. I'm going to kick it to Brad. I want to know what you think.
This was one of my blind spots at the job. I'd never seen Zodiac, and so I was excited to watch it. And 2 hour 40, I was like, oh shit, 2 hour and 40. And you start off with a pretty graphic killing, and then you get pretty early in the movie another graphic killing. I was just like, oh damn, this is one of those types of movies. And then all of a sudden it just turns into this kind of different movie for a second. And I was hella surprised by how many of these, how many just people that you see in the movie. You're like, oh, I know that guy from this. I know a guy, like just a ton of that guys.
There's a lot of players for sure.
Yes, a big cast, and it was at times a little confusing, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, but for the most part, enjoyed it. I mean, of course, it's got that Fincher style. It's got you're going to get great acting. You're going to get beautiful shots. You're going to get some tight editing, and for that, I really loved it. I wouldn't say I loved this movie, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Repeating some of the things that you said, Brad, as far as the look, you can count on Fincher to, have the cast, the music's on point, the mood, the lighting, like the tone. It all plays, and it's so clean, specific. It's all specific to the movies that he's making. So he creates the world. He creates that world that you're kind of immersing yourself in. A case this long that stretches so many years in so many areas, that's so complex, to tackle such a project and make you feel like you're not watching a documentary, which I'll get into that later. A movie that's so long, and at any point in this movie, if it comes on, I'm willing to jump into it. The way that it's structured is it's like two different movies. You have the murder graphic side of it that it opens up with immediately, and it just leaves you kind of in the dust of these murders. And then pretty much exactly the midway point, when I paused it, is when it picks up and you're introduced to Arthur Lee Allen. And then it starts an entirely other crime and the investigation side of it, which is extensive and goes on for years and then turns into decades. And so it's impossible to be, to me,
literally or in the movie, because literally at times this movie felt like, God damn, this is a long movie.
See, not for me. That's where, not for me, because I dig all the different montages, the different musical choices during the different montages where they're going through the file cabinets and they're going through the file boxes and they're digging through and they're flashing through the notes from detectives and investigations, interrogations. So I'm all about it. I love the cast. I love just to focus on the captains in Vallejo and Napa and even Mulroney in SF. So that's just a few, but I love the cast. So honestly, it's a win-win for me. It's up there as far as favorite Fincher movies for me, but it doesn't quite take the top for me, but big fan of this movie.
Yeah, no, Nick and I, we've talked about this one before. I mean, and Nick kind of, I think, introduced me to some of the Fincher stuff, or some of the Fincher perspectives. So this is Nate here, by the way, and none of our fans can tell the difference between us. But I can tell you, if you ever tune in and you feel like you're listening to a Barry White song, then that's me talking. If you get all tingly inside, oh yeah. So yeah, I've seen this movie maybe 3 or 4 times. I actually rewatched it kind of independently about 6 months ago. And I really like it, but for some reason this time it felt longer to me. It took me more than my normal 12 segments to watch it, which always feels long. But I saw something different in it in preparing for the pod that I really dug about it, or at least thought was, in a movie like this, right? You feel a little bit like you might not see new things in it, because it's historical, and because it's not like the story, it's not like a story that it's telling you in certain, in a way. But as we were talking about, sort of the run up to this and some of the new news that's out about this, what it got me thinking was that the Zodiac, it's a movie about Zodiac that's not about Zodiac at all. Right. I mean, and of course the movie doesn't, it doesn't really come down exactly on who Zodiac is. And in fact, some of the more recent stuff, casts significant doubt on the possibility that it is who the movie implies it is. it's really a movie about the range of people who want to try to figure out who Zodiac is.
Obsession is
Right,
kind of-
exactly.
yeah.
And even in the time since Fincher made and released this movie, that has taken on a whole new life because of the prominence of, you know, the internet and social media and Reddit and other forums where this sort of thing can go
True
on.
crime podcasts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, true crime genre in general, podcasts and other formats, you know, a lot of books that come out on this sort of stuff. So for me, watching the movie this time, it was really through the lens of Fincher telling a story not at all about Zodiac, and in some ways not itself about the case, but about a bunch of, you know, Graysmith, you know, himself is a cartoonist, right? And that's a major, you know, point of reference throughout the movie. So, you know, and then the first cipher is solved by sort of complete amateurs, right? And so, you know, to me, it really was interesting to watch it, looking for, you know, the different pods and groups of people that are obsessed in their own ways, trying to come at this case because it's unsolved and maybe unsolvable.
And at the core, I mean, Zodiac is really just like the first. I mean, not the first, but I mean, he's coming through with some real like guerrilla social media campaign. You know what I mean? He's kind of calling the shots from the beginning, sending out these letters claiming that he did all these things, saying scary shit like, I'm gonna kill a bunch of school children on a school bus. You know what I mean? Stuff that's gonna freak people out, stuff that's gonna grab everybody's attention, stuff that's gonna freak, you know, people like the San Francisco Chronicle or Examiner or whoever it is, in order to, you know, kind of force them to feel like they have to broadcast his message or else he's going to punish them for not doing that, which is kind of an insane thing when you think about 1969 when this stuff is coming out, because now, you know, that kind of almost marketing of yourself is pretty standard, I would say. David Fincher, right? If you're gonna go through the lens of this movie, you're looking at Seven, Mindhunter, and this movie. It's obviously that the guy is into serial killers, right? He's got a message that he wants to come across with. So we're gonna go and sit down with David, and we're gonna talk to him specifically. Like a lot of times when we do this category, we'll say, "Hey, you know, we're talking to whoever it is, whatever the director is," and then we'll say, you know, but if we're talking to this director, maybe we'll talk to him about this movie or we'll talk to him about that. But let's keep it strictly to what we're looking at through the lens of David Fincher. So he comes across the story of Zodiac, and just a quick timeline of what we're dealing with here. Before we sit down with David, we're looking at 1969. Random letter arrives to the San Francisco Examiner newspaper, and it's got a coded message. This killer basically identifies himself and says, I did these kills. I'm going to tell you guys some secret stuff that happened in these, and you guys are going to, just to prove to you that it was me. Immediately, the cipher that he originally sends is solved. So you've got a murder in 1968 that's being attributed to him. 69, there's 4 to 5 murders. And in the end, you're looking at, they're saying that possibly 30-something people were killed by this guy, or 5, which is what the official total is being charged against him. So Fincher wants to take this on. He wants to make this movie. Obviously, this movie came out in 2007. We're talking about it 14 years later. There's been some new developments in the case that we'll get into in a second that I'd love to talk to David about. So they're saying that he hinted that he had killed at least 37 people, but they're saying that only 5 can officially be connected to him and 2 attempted murders, because he didn't actually, if it was him, he didn't actually succeed in a couple of times. So we're sitting down with David Fincher. What are we drinking with Dave today? What are you guys thinking?
Well, I mean, if we were smart, we would have brought Aqua Velvas and got with it. But I brought a growler, and I'm sharing it with a few of my co-hosts here, of Dying Breed, local brewery. It's their El Macho. It's a great little Mexican lager. It's great for a michelada. In fact, that's what we were drinking the night before. So it's just super tasty. If you're ever in the Oakdale, California area, hit up Dying Breed Brewery. They're making some good beers. Enjoy them.
Very good. Tastes delicious.
Delicious.
I'm drinking a Roy Rogers. Is that
Closer
Is
to
that
an
not
aqua
cool?
velva. Closer.
they're just delicious? You put a little grenadine in a Coke, and it's all of a sudden like
Yeah.
it's like a explosion of cherry flavor in your mouth.
That's awesome.
Okay.
And this will take us to our ASMR moment.
Actually, I got that coming for you
Okay,
later.
sorry.
I got my ghost nuts for that.
So we got beer and sweet drink. So Zach, what's going on with Fincher? What are we asking him?
So we've talked about this. I mean, so really quick, this is what I want to run down. So we've prefaced it, we've talked about it. So Fakal Zerui. So this guy is a French 3D and virtual reality artist. This guy comes out about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago from the recording of this pod, and he immediately jumps on Reddit and says, I've solved the last cipher. So there's a 305-word cipher that this guy comes out that has never been solved from the 1970s that was supposedly sent by the Zodiac. So this guy, within 2 weeks, is claiming on all of these. So there's huge communities of people that for years and years and years have dedicated themselves to solving these ciphers. This guy immediately comes on and says, hey, in 2 weeks, I've solved the cipher. He's immediately shut down. His post is deleted. No one believes him. No one wants to believe him. But there's some compelling evidence that maybe he was telling the truth. So basically, the movie Zodiac implies that the bald guy, what's his name? What's the guy that they imply is the killer?
Lee Allen.
Arthur Lee Allen.
Arthur Lee Allen. They're implying that Arthur Lee Allen, who just reminds me of Kevin from The Office for some reason, if he was the fucking Scranton Strangler, he reminds me of that dude the entire movie. But this guy's saying that is not the guy. He's apparently been cleared by DNA evidence. He's already dead. He comes up with there is 2 unsolved codes. One of them is so short that it is thought to be unsolvable. But he thinks that he solved it using one of the keys from one of the previous things. And he says, my name is blank. And he says Kayr, which is one of the suspects' last name, which is Lawrence K or Lawrence Kane. This guy's gone by like 20 different names. He's actually dead now, of course, so we'll never know actually really what it is. But that's what they're thinking is the actual.
And if you look at some of the summaries of the evidence against Kane, it looks pretty convincing, right? Like, he changes cars 5 days after, one of the attempted murders that where the suspects see him. The woman that is kidnapped in Modesto temporarily, much later identifies him, in a photo. So there are a whole bunch of sort of things that if you look at him closely, but the problem, of course, is Arthur Lee Allen looks very convincing if in Graysmith's book and the evidence there, presented in film by Fincher looks really convincing. So to me, right, given that there are multiple suspects that look awfully convincing, right, there's some real shocking coincidences going on here, which itself is kind of an interesting.
Well, there's always worries of copycats with ones that get really publicized. It's like,
I think that's the big one.
Yeah,
right?
that maybe this Kane dude, he could be possibly, I'm going to act like I'm the Zodiac, and I might be doing some terrible shit too, but I'm not the actual real Zodiac. So I don't know, craziness.
I mean, this guy lived 2 blocks away from the cab driver that was killed. That's depicted in the movie. He quotes a play called Mikoto, which played 3 blocks away from his apartment during the time that he supposedly made the cipher that was sent to the newspapers. Brian Hartnell, one of the survivors, who said that basically out of all the pictures that he was shown by possible suspects, that this guy was the closest, although he did acknowledge that it had been too long, so he wasn't quite sure. They think the voices sounded similar. They think that the Zodiac suffered a brain injury at some point, and this guy suffered a brain injury right around the same time.
So the movie's false as far as that victim who survived identifying Allen. That's false.
No, I think that was true, but you're also talking about. I mean, you're talking about years have passed, right?
Like
so
20 years.
A stocky white male with a speech impediment. Who knows who it could be. You're trying to pick somebody out of a lineup when it's kind of a moving target at that point.
Yeah.
So I have two sort of threads here for Fincher. One is I want to ask you. You mentioned, Zach, that he's somebody that clearly is fascinated with serial killers, right? We talk about Mindhunter and
I think his body of work would definitely support that.
Well, and like, the girl with the dragon tattoo is also sort of in that vein.
I didn't even think about that, yes.
But I wonder whether or not, in fact, he would say that he's fascinated with those people who try to catch serial killers or figure out serial killers. I mean, Mindhunter, right, comes to mind here, right? That's a movie that's much, I mean, that's a TV show that's much more about those who try to figure it out. And I would argue, extending my earlier point, that upon this rewatch, Zodiac for me is not about the killer at all, right? I mean, the movie is really about the people in various, angles that are trying to see it. So I'm kind of curious about, what Fincher, how he would profile himself. The other question I have, and I think, Nicky might have some commentary on this too. He sort of, he foreshadowed it, but I think a lot about what true stories owe, right? If you're going to tell what is supposedly or purportedly a true story, what does that mean, first of all, right? And I even think about this in the context of documentaries, right? I mean, documentaries are not true stories. Somebody chose what to film in the first place. Somebody chose the subject. Somebody chose when to turn the camera on and off. Somebody chose how to edit it. And then the music and the overtones and the narrative. I mean, so on some level, right, there is no true story. There is never a true story in film in a sense. But with something like this, where there's very clearly a heavy profit and entertainment motive, and then also there's sort of it's a form of art on top of all of that, when the material is sort of based, in this case, explicitly and heavily on sort of true events, how much should we be, or are we bothered by the fact that there are things that are either at very worst sort of just patently made up, and there's some of that here, but probably
in
less
order to drive the narrative of the story and make the movie more interesting or whatever it is.
Yeah, just make it that really like tight 2 hours and 40 minutes. You gotta have things moving along. And then, how much do we care, right? Like, given that we know that there's always going to be some, we can't know what the true events were in some sense to even compare it to. So I guess I'm curious, what Fincher's take is after tackling this topic in this book. Did he feel any sort of, requirement, to try to get it right in a sense?
I mean, I'm kind of concerned because like the ending of the movie, the most, almost uncomfortable scene is when you get Rick Marshall when he goes to his house and he's like, I don't believe that actually happened. And to create that scene kind of bothers me a little bit. The fact that it's just like, oh yeah, we're going to make this whole like, oh, there was this creepy guy maybe upstairs and I had to like run out of his house. I don't think that actually happened, did it?
So,
Nick?
So actually that character's name, I don't know if he is a real life character. I think it's Bob Vaughn. Bob Vaughn, and he's the one that said he knew
the guy that owned the
Rick
theater,
Marshall, and he was the one who went there to meet him. And I don't know, I picture that not happening.
No, so I thought you were going to say this, Nick, but yeah. So Graysmith acknowledges that was an actual encounter. He went to the guy's house. The guy took him down into the basement. He was real freaked out. Realized that there was someone upstairs and excused himself as quickly as possible. Now I'm sure there was a lot of tension that was kind of conjured up in the movie, but that is actually included in Graysmith's book, and that is supposedly something that really happened.
Since we're talking about that really quick, and then back to you, Brad, is something I noticed after like multiple rewatches of this is beginning of the movie when they're going through case files, Ruffalo says something and references, oh, there's not a lot of basements in California. He says it early. Then later,
there's the call.
He walks into and Gyllenhaal mentions it really quick, and you kind of get like chills really quick. And that just whole scene, that's one of I put that on great scenes.
And I mean, for our East Coast fans, I mean, we've been living in California our whole lives. How many people we know with the basement? I know zero.
I can't think, but
They just don't do that over here.
Yeah, when you had a basement, it was like, let's go. This is amazing.
Yeah.
My cousin had a sweet basement with a big screen TV and a pool table.
I've seen,
Like,
I've seen one of those. But Brad,
So my only question just to Fincher is simply like, at this point, who does he think the Zodiac is? Like, he obviously put us onto two very, I wouldn't say obvious, but I mean two suspects that seem to kind of fit the bill. And with this new knowledge, has he changed his mind? Did he have any? When he went into it, was he trying to say like, I'm going to push people this way, or is it just like, maybe I don't know, I'm going to kind of push it both ways and just see what people decide?
Yeah, I'm with you. And kind of like you're saying, Nate and Brad, as far as, okay, Fincher, you've tackled this topic and this case that spanned decades and multiple angles and multiple opinions about who the prime suspect is, who you think is the murderer. And like you said, Brad, I'd be curious who he thinks, after doing all the research, interviewing people, creating this movie and committing to this direction and this voice, who does he think it is? And then having a conversation with him about just his talent for building tension, because Mindhunter is one of my favorite shows ever. And I think that show, compared to any show or movie, builds tension like no other show or movie. I think really, or many have that I've seen. Zach, you're a big thriller and horror movie and tension type, movie watcher. And so I'm very,
Well, that's the key. That's the key that we talked about earlier with this movie is there's no real payoff. There's no reveal. It's a 2 hour and 40-minute movie where you leave the theater and he hints that at who it is, but there's no big payoff, which is an interesting decision on the director's part.
But the thing is a different director maybe takes those scenes and gores them up. And something like that Berryessa scene to me is one of the more terrifying murder scenes. Beautiful, gorgeous day in Berryessa. It's quiet. It's not overdone. He kind of sneaks behind a tree, which is totally a human thing to do. Maybe he wasn't like ready to go out.
Trees that Fincher flew in because the scenery was different than it was like actually at the case, and so he flew in some big ass oak trees so that they could have some things to hide under.
Shit, dude. See, that's Fincher, dude. Like, and it's like for such a simple, beautiful day. Like there had to have been. You felt like there had to have been another spot in another cove on that lake where maybe the oaks were right, but maybe there wasn't, and maybe he had gone all around the lake and there really wasn't a spot. And the lighting and the time of day wasn't right, and he had to do that. The close-ups that he chose, when he chose to do them of faces throughout the movie, just like they did in Silence of the Lambs, it makes you tense. When you are face-to-face with a person, they are looking at the camera. There's not a more tense moment in a thriller, in a horror movie. Her and the actress's reaction when she's getting, stabbed before seeing it coming and then it happening is.
Am I right? There's no music over the top of those killings either.
Right. I don't think there's any music.
Which is one of the things that I like. It's odd that it's almost like even with certain types of music, you can make things scarier, but it also relieves a certain amount of tension because it breaks your suspension of disbelief.
And that's the key in the Berryessa scene is that what he does is he makes you feel that they're going to get away. You feel throughout that scene, it's tension, 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 and then you feel like, oh, maybe he's gonna let him go. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't know. But you start to feel relieved a little bit for a second there, and then it comes in, and that's what gets you.
100%. And when I first saw it, I felt that. And you watch it the first time, you're like, shit, I know how this ends. Yep. But it's still an amazing scene and super scary. I got a couple of like things you were talking about, some historical like little tidbits, but just about actually related to our small town. My dad being a big kind of Zodiac buff and kind of serial killer, just enthusiast of stories and documentaries and everything. And he helped me with a little background research. The taxi driver actually is from Houston or the Modesto area. The fifth victim is from the Houston area, Modesto area.
Paul Stein.
And actually, when he was killed, his brother Joe Stein, a Modesto resident, came out and publicly challenged the Zodiac to basically like a physical
Trial by
altercation,
combat?
like come
Love that.
find me. This is where I work. These are the times that I work here. There's a news clip of him being interviewed, and basically you could just get the sense of the questions that the reporter is asking, like, do you fear for your life? Are you afraid that the Zodiac, are you going to bring that you're going to bring the Zodiac to Modesto? And he says, honestly, straight up, I'm just really thinking selfish about this. I actually didn't consider that. And he said things like, I think I got a good fight still left in me. Like, I don't know. I think I could probably handle myself if he wanted to come. Another thing that's creepy is if, 5 months later is when the Highway 132 abduction took place. And so, some people say that perhaps his challenge, he was on his way, to Modesto to kind of make his way into this area to kind of take him up on that or whatever. And it's kind of a scary take on that. So anyways, just, I grew up, with my dad being into it, hearing that he was into it, hearing how scared people in Modesto in our area were with the Zodiac murders. My mom growing up in Santa Rosa area, hearing how kind of terrified she was at age of like 10, 11, 12. And so hearing that something like that was, that close to home is, just speaks to, and we learned a little bit how fearful everyone was when the Zodiac murders were happening.
I'll admit, I legit did not know anything about the Zodiac until they started saying that, or I think it was Trump said that Ted Cruz might be the Zodiac. And I was like,
oh my
God, the fuck is the Zodiac? And I started looking it up. I was like, oh shit, that's wild.
Oh man.
I mean, are we sure that Ted Cruz isn't the Zodiac? Or I just feels like we need to.
I feel like he's not age appropriate.
I think Zodiac might be intelligent. So what it really is we're talking about Fincher building tension and stuff like that. And what you can do when you have a true story is you can kind of, you have your source material and you can decide to use that or not use it. And a couple of things that he decides to use are kind of, when you're watching scary movies and stuff like that, like when the woman has the baby in her car and then the guy gets her in there. So one of the tropes or one of the things that horror directors like to do is put a child in peril, right? So there's nothing that gets you on edge like when there's a baby in danger or a small child in danger. And typically 99% of scary horror movies, the baby or the child is never going to get hurt. But just the fact that they're in danger scares you a lot. So he is able to use that tension builder, but it doesn't get cheesy or tropey because it's a true story, right?
And because the way that they do it is just that you feel terrified when he tells her, before I kill you, I'm going to throw your baby out the window, and
then it cuts, and then it cuts away.
It's so jarring, right? That you don't have to see anything like actually happen. There's no confrontation, but you're just
and you don't have to even see her jump out of the car. It's not like an action-packed moment where she's how is she going to roll out of this car?
But when you just see her standing on the side of the road, screaming, you are instantly filled with dread that the baby's dead, right? I mean, that's your immediate thought until she brings the baby out, which is just that's the kind of shit that I love. The shit that gets you to where you're panicked for somebody that you don't know or somebody that you're not connected to at all, only because it's a child or it's somebody innocent or helpless. You know what I mean? Which is something that, is like I said, it's a trope. It's something that you would do to scare the audience. But when it's a true story, you can do it legitimately, and it's something that can really get you.
I'll say that there's an inherent challenge with filmmakers making movies about actual events nowadays, because I'm the type that before I watched it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look up a little bit about the Zodiac and kind of look into this before I get into it, just because I want to alleviate any of my fears or concerns, and so I looked it up and I knew that the woman didn't lose her baby, so it's like it took away from the scene. I basically spoiled it for myself, but it sucks for directors now to have to make a movie when you know that people can look up and find out, oh, that shit didn't happen. So I don't need to be scared because I know that person's going to be safe, or I know that, oh shit, this person's going to die. That's the way I went into it, and that kind of sucks. But I probably shouldn't have done that.
So I want to ask you guys a question. Does a true story film make it better or worse for you? Because it definitely makes it better for me. Like I love films based on true stories, and yet mostly don't care about the things that they don't get quite right, as long as the essence of it is right. But I just sort of realized I kind of assumed everyone was that way, and I bet that's not true.
Well, I would say, I mean, for a movie like Zodiac, it's worse because in a fictional movie, you can be like, oh, these are fictional people dying. It's not a big deal. But when you're like, no, goddamn, this really happened and this is some terrible shit, that I think that's tougher to deal with. And so I kind of like a movie like Zodiac fucks me up more than like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it's like, well, that shit didn't happen. This shit really
That's
happened.
real.
It was actually based on true events.
Not. I mean, it was very, very loosely based on what was his name? Shit, I forgot what the guy's name was.
The girl didn't quite look exactly like Jessica Biel, but besides that, it was pretty exact on. She had higher cut jeans.
What do you Nikki? You like?
I'm 100% with you. Yeah, I'm in it more when it's.
But
when it's
even
a
with
true
the movie
story.
about like murders and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, yes, in the sense that I'm not saying it doesn't shake you up more, but I presume that that's what they want me to do. They want to do to me, because fuck them. But anyway,
So typically I'm with you. Like it has to be, but it has to be the right story, right? So it has to be something that's compelling enough to grip you without going off of the source material. So it has to be good enough to make a compelling movie or show or whatever it is because what ruins it for me is, and what is cool about this movie is that it's pretty much universally praised as being pretty accurate. The minute that everybody, when you go too far off of the true story, and you're gonna say at the beginning of the movie this is a true story, and then when you read about it after the movie and they're like 3/4 of this was bullshit, you lost me.
which is funny because we're talking about Fincher, and Social Network is one of those movies that a lot of people talk about being not true in a lot of areas, or at all in a lot of areas. And then there's a lot of debates on, because of how significant what they were doing in Social Network was in the forming of Facebook as a piece of history, true or false, does that take away from from its importance as a film made about that time period, true or false? Zuckerberg's story, true or false, him fucking over Savern. So anyways,
That's a good point, because I would say like Zodiac for me is like informative, like, oh shit, I learned a lot about the Zodiac, versus Facebook. I'm like, I enjoy this movie because it's a great, just an outstandingly made movie, but I don't think of it as like, oh, this is the history of Facebook.
And the thing is with Zodiac, I also look at it as a beautifully formed, movie, because I think when you have so much source material, I think it's a bigger challenge to balance the two and create a piece of art from something that starts from not art and just facts and data, and how do you turn that into your own and put your voice to that. I think that's what makes Fincher, one of the best.
It's also deciding on source material, right? So he decided to tell this
that's a great point.
Yeah, from Graysmith's point of view, which I think, leans a bit one way, but I think everybody kind of agrees that it's probably a pretty accurate portrayal.
Well, what Nate was saying about documentaries, right? Or Brad, what you guys were saying about documentaries. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's still history. In most cases, it's data, it's historical facts, but it's coming from a person's a creator's voice, and it's perspective, and it's their voice coming through.
Well, and the contrast, right, in terms of source material, Social Network's based on a book too. I mean, I think it's called The Accidental Millionaires or Billionaires by Ben Mesrick. And I read the book well before the movie came out. And I mean, I really like that writing, but my sense is that if you compare the two pieces of source material, it wouldn't take you very long to figure out. I mean, it's essentially like nonfiction novel, right? Is what the Social Network is based on. I mean, it's explicitly trying to be that, and Graysmith's book is not that, right? And so, that choice changes the movie fundamentally.
But I also wonder how much the time period affects that. So when you're talking about something that happened in 1969, you've only got so many point of views for people that decided to write a book. When you're talking about something with Facebook that you're talking about 90s, early 2000s, I mean, these guys there's 15,000 different people's perspectives on it because everybody has social media and a way to get their viewpoint out there. I think Fincher is probably, I would like to think, I mean, obviously I don't know him anymore. I mean, we used to know him really well, but he's too famous for us now. We used to be really good friends. But, I'm thinking that he would love to sit down and talk about all this shit. He seems like somebody that's just like, I feel like he would get super nerdy and super into all of this. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like this is like just right in his wheelhouse, and he would love to discuss all of this stuff with us. So
with us.
Are you inviting Fincher back to
I
our
think
podcast?
he has an open invitation.
yeah, well, I mean, when we first had him on for the Fight Club pod that we did a year ago, he was like, "Hey, anytime you guys want me back," but he's been
Ever
he's
since
got
Mank.
stuff going. He's got to deal with Netflix. He's got a shitty movie that he did with them.
I liked Mank. Why you Mank?
Isn't Mank?
I
about
didn't
Citizen
see him.
Kane?
Yeah, but it was a good movie.
I didn't see either one.
So you just turn your nose up.
Welcome back to our podcast about movies where we haven't seen Citizen Kane.
So because we're talking really quick about him being a great movie maker, like scenes in the movie that are memorable to you guys. I mean, like
The Lake Berryessa scene in the
That's
basement
it.
scene, I think. Really
So
simple.
I loved the use of the building of the construction of the building in San Francisco. It's a real passing thing. Now, obviously not, but it's for me a little device like that's pretty novel. I don't know. I find him clever in ways that aren't like he doesn't try to trot out as being particularly showy. It just seems like, hey, we got to pass time here. How can we do it? Well, we can do it the same old fucking way, or we can do something kind of different. And it felt cool to me. And I'm not one to notice that kind of stuff unless it's, pretty cool.
Brad.
Oh, I'm gonna say mine for Shag because I got a little bit to say about.
So just me, the interrogation with Arthur Lee Allen. And maybe when you're watching it the first time, it's the thing where maybe even the second time when you're watching, when you're like, oh, they're not going to interrogate him again after this. When you watch it the second, third time, whatever time, after that first time, you realize, shit, this is it. And then you get to actually enjoy the close-ups and when the detectives are seeing little things and their reactions, those close-ups of the faces and Arthur Lee Allen's and them picking up little things. And
So on that, Arthur Lee Allen, Gyllenhaal, So not only did the scene in the basement, he claims really happened. He also claims that when he went to the hardware store and Arthur Lee Allen is working there, that is a true scene. So what he says what really happened. So in the movie, he walks into the hardware store. Alan's working there and he turns around and they lock eyes and he says, "Can I help you?" And he says no, and then he just walks out of the store. So what he says actually happened is that he went to the store that Alan worked at. He drove up next to him in the parking lot. So Arthur Lee Allen, Graysmith is parked in the parking lot, and Arthur Lee Allen drives up next to him in the parking lot, blocking him in so that he cannot pull out. Pulls up right next to him so that they're looking at each other and they stare each other down through their driver's side and passenger windows.
that's the interaction.
Which is fucking awesome, right?
Wow.
I don't know what else we can talk about with Fincher. We could probably go for a long time. There's a ton of source material. I want to preface all of the things that we're saying here, or post face. What do you say when you're saying it after you already said it? I want to post face all of the stuff that we're saying today with that none of us are Zodiac experts. We don't know.
You're going to show me your post face? Is that
I just it's similar to my O face. I just don't want anybody listening to this think that we know what the fuck we're talking about, because we don't. But I'm willing to speculate on a lot of shit.
It feels like right now, to me, it's time for the ASMR moment. I'm just throwing it out there. And for that, I've chosen, and this is Nate, the Blue Diamond Extreme Ghost Pepper almonds.
Oh, is that what you've been eating, munching on? Ghost pepper?
Ghost Pepper almonds.
Oh my God.
You hear that crunch?
There's nothing more Central Valley than a white guy eating almonds.
farmer not eating his own almonds.
Supporting Blue Diamond. A can of wheat. That's all they ask.
All right. Well, I know that there's some people out there that just excuse themselves from the pod for a minute, so we'll give them a second to come back.
Bev's Video Kingdom is brought to you by the San Francisco Police Department. Got a crime that needs solving? Don't worry about it. Our inspectors are on the SFPD are top-notch, highly trained specialists who will do anything to solve your case. Of course, that's as long as the case is completely within our jurisdiction and doesn't involve communicating or sharing information with any other PD. Those other PDs are assholes. Can you believe Vallejo wanted us to help them with the murder case in their jurisdiction just because the perp dropped off the murder weapon across the street from our department? I mean, geez, the balls on those guys trying to get important evidence from us. Fuck them. They'll get the gun when they tell us what the prime suspect in the Jones murder said when he confessed to them last year. Still haven't made an arrest on that one. The San Francisco Police Department, effortlessly looking into crime on a daily basis.
Dude.
Love that essay.
Okay. All right, David. Have a good night, bud. All right. So David just left the room. So, I mean, man, that guy's drunk. Somebody should probably drive him home. So we're going to move on to Shag, Snag, Body Bag, which takes on a whole nother meaning when we're talking about serial killer movies. You know, a lot of serial killers like to shag, like to snag, and like to body bag. So we're going to throw it over to Nick. And what are we shagging from this movie, Big Dog?
I'm shagging the buddy cop storyline, or whatever you want to call it, that goes on in this movie, whether it's just chemistry between two actors, but it happens multiple times between not just two actors. So you got Graysmith and Avery, you got Robert Downey Jr. and Gyllenhaal's relationship that you're kind of just, you want to see more of them working together, talking about the case. You got Toschi and his partner, William Armstrong, played by
Anthony Edwards.
That's right. Goose. You got their
Always the wingman.
At least he made it through this one. Their relationship, and then Toschi and Graysmith at the end of the movie. You want to see their interactions and the chemistry that they got going on. So you got three different kind of buddy cop, you know, you want to see them as homies. After this, you'd see probably a 10-part Netflix series if they were trying to solve crimes and talk about crimes. So that's my shag.
I do enjoy Hulk telling him throughout the movie, like, I can't tell you this, but you should go
tell
talk
you to go see Ken Marlowe in Vallejo.
Exactly.
Oh man, my shag is just Fincher not giving a fuck. Like at this point in his career, he's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Sure. 100 takes per scene. Sure. No real climax in the movie. Sure. I mean, if you give a director this power, like, I mean, it can kind of go off the rails. I know after Boogie Nights, like a lot of people, Magnolia is a very divisive film with PTA, and it's like, I mean, because he kind of just got to do what he wanted. But there was one scene that came to mind that Fincher wanted to put in the movie that they didn't allow him to, where it was going to be the 4 years, like it was going to travel forward 4 years in time. He was going to have 2 minutes of black with just songs kind of transitioning into each other to go for the 4 years. And I was like,
What, blank screen?
Blank screen.
Oh my God.
And he just wanted to do it, just a musical 2-minute musical transition to move you forward 4 years. And I was like, God damn, the balls on that guy. That's awesome. So Fincher didn't give a fuck. He's like, I'm doing whatever I want. I don't care.
Pretty much.
I'm shagging the unsolved mystery. So like I like, you know, the resistance of the temptation to like really tie it up. I think that's what makes this movie, and maybe among many special things, that's probably the thing that I like the most about it, and that I would like to see other movies do well that they don't.
This is my most controversial take on this movie is probably my shag, which is going to be animal crackers. I mean, is there anything more delicious than flavorless? It's not flavorless, but they're sugar flavored.
They taste like animal crackers.
Can we talk about
animal crackers?
Can we talk about animal crackers for a minute if we're going to go there?
They're delicious.
Animal cookies.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
All animal crackers are not the same. You
No.
get some of that big old like giant bullshit animal crackers that have like 1/10 the sugar in them.
No, they have to come in a small box with a string.
It looks like it's like a zoo cart.
Exactly.
If
It's like a
not
rail
those,
car full
don't
of
try
animals.
to sell them to me like they're some sort of animal cracker, because they're
want
just fucking Gross.
The only right animal cracker is the mother's pink and white ones with the little sprinkles.
Oh my god.
Those
Okay,
are
so
like
now
the
we're on
best
next
cookies
level.
ever.
That's too much.
Those weren't around in '69.
You went beyond the pale.
Oh, I've
okay?
gotten
That's-
back on those all of a sudden. They
that's
used to be
too
at my
much.
grandma's house way back in the day, and now I'm back on them.
They
So,
didn't start
hey.
frosting till the
Well,
80s.
Here's a question: What's
7 a night,
inside?
that's all
Have
they
you ever
ask.
just sucked the frosting off one of those? Is it
Dude.
like a traditional animal cracker inside?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're telling me that
I haven't sucked the frosting on it. But
the guy looks like he could
I've looked off an animal
cracker.
Brad, I'm 100% in on that. We used to call them white one, pink ones. I don't know how that came out, but my grandma used to have them at her house. They came in a bag that was like made of foil. Oh my god!
Oh, my grandma would get the multi pack that had all the different ones with the pink and whites. I would eat all the pink and whites and leave all that
Wait,
other
there was
shit.
a pack
What
that
else
had
was in
anything
there?
but pink and white animal
what
crackers.
else? What other color was there?
It had like
shit
the
is
little,
that?
Did they
there was
call
like
it
some little
pick
like
through to find the
Oreo
good ones?
wannabes and some other like shit.
Oh,
yeah.
the mother's multi-mix.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but hold on. Let's not jump past this. Are you trying to claim right now that the pink and whites, if you take the frosting off of them, the center of them is the animal cracker from the little like Barnum and Bailey Zoo Cart box?
I think it's approximately.
I say no.
What do you say is in there?
Some knockoff bullshit.
No, I think it's the same shit.
You're telling me that Mother's was like, hey,
It's not the same.
we're going to steal them. Exactly.
Yeah, it's not the same. But
Not the same animal cracker.
Should talk
But-
cookie with me.
flavorless,
Challenge my cookies.
flavorless / sugar flavored snacks are my favorite. No one else likes them. I'm a big fan of the super soft Loft House cookies that they sell in the grocery store that do not taste like anything. That are so, you know what I'm
Just
talking
the
about?
heavy frosting.
Yes. If you know,
like
you
those
know.
the super soft cookies that
Oh,
you
yeah.
get,
You know,
that-
I'm a big frosted sugar cookie guy.
Yes.
I went way in on the Loft House early, and I might have done overdone. I might have killed it for myself.
Oh my god. All right. Now that we've had our sugar high, we're gonna move on to snag. So we found out what we wanted to shag in this movie. What are we gonna take home to Mama and show her what's going on with the Zodiac? What do you got, Nikki?
Snagging.
Yeah, snag.
All right. So it's not a sexy pick, but we talked about Fincher's ability to piece together. So it's Fincher and how he basically told the story that he told and created a great movie that we all enjoyed with so much material. The passing of time, basically, how he formulated the passing of time. What I marked down is I counted roughly 20 times in the movie, in the lower part of the screen, they say X amount of years later, X amount of years later. And that's not even including, because then he took his liberties and said hours later, which obviously he didn't have source material for that. So that's Fincher working his way in. So upwards of 25 times there is text at the bottom of the screen telling you X amount of years later, this amount of years later. And if you think about that, if you're told that ahead of time, that's not something you want to, that may not be a movie you want to see.
Or you think that's like 100-year movie?
Right. Is it the Irishman?
that's
It's the
only a slight
Irishman of murder
exaggeration.
movies.
Yeah.
Right. But I counted them. And so it's to have that, that's what he was dealing with at the start. And he pieced together the movie that he did, I thought was great. So it's Fincher, and my focus was that, just how time was dealt with in the movie.
My snag is Northern California, man. It's just the fact that this takes place in a place that we grew up in. I mean, we're not big city kids, but at the same time, it mentions Modesto, which is near, really near to where we grew up.
Well,
And
and for us, San Francisco was like, I imagine for
The
all of us,
city.
it was like the city. You went into the city,
yeah,
and that was a big trip. You know, you go around Christmas time. You go, so those buildings and those scenes and the feel of that definitely feels like home in a certain way.
100%. So it's like just the idea of Northern California. We have mountains and snow to our east, and then you have the coast. You have San Francisco. You have the Bay Area. I mean, all to our west. It's like we were kind of right in the middle of that. And so I like a movie that's taking place here, and takes its material seriously. The old mock-ups of San Francisco. I mean, I know Fincher went through like CGI to make sure that it all looked right and stuff. So that's pretty amazing. And I like that fact that we have some great Northern California scenes in this movie.
Did you snag yet, Zach?
My snag may be controversial.
Wait, wasn't your shag
was
also controversial?
Or, I'm sorry.
Full of controversy.
Well, oh no, we're snagging.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess all my takes are controversial.
Especially the ones about cookies.
But basically, when in 1969, there was different media sources, but everything was kind of a single media source compared to today, right? So you had, different newspapers, but everybody watched the news and everybody was kind of getting the same information. God, I wish we could go back to that, even if it's wrong. I hate now that you can kind of hone in on your exact flavor of the news, and everything that you're getting is going to be through either a super liberal, a super conservative, or super neutral view. Although I don't know any of super neutral
what are
views.
the ultra neutral
Super
views?
neutral. Who's
there
making
aren't
money
any,
off of
right?
that?
Fucking,
So
those fucking neutrals
you know what I'm saying? Like it just
talking about both sides of issues. Bullshit.
it kills me.
Swedish news.
It kills me that now you can just create your own reality, right? So you can curate your Facebook experience or your Twitter experience or your news experience, and you're gonna get what you're looking for. I feel like at least in the 60s and 70s there was a narrative, and that's what the narrative was, and that's what everybody was getting. I feel
We're
like
being fed all the stuff that the government wanted us to believe.
whether it was good or bad, I
Back when you were young,
liked it.
back in the 60s.
I don't know, man. All I'm saying is it seemed better. Maybe I'm just nostalgic for
simpler?
other times.
Simpler
Simpler
times.
times.
Animal crackers were all pink and white back then.
Pink and whites.
Okay, so I'm going to snag the cast. It's kind of a boring one, but it's a killer cast. And I'm a big fan of Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., and yes, Ruffalo. I completely disagree with Zach on this point. So I really like
actor.
and of course Goose is in it, so I'm never gonna hate that. So I love the cast.
We're gonna move on to Body Bag.
And speaking of things that I hate, so for someone like me that watches movies not usually in one take, it took me a really long time to watch this movie. And I'm not inherently opposed to long movies. I thought that there was some fat to cut here.
Definitely.
And so I think this movie could have been made with mostly the same points and a lot of the same beautiful cinematography and a lot of the tension, and at about 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Don't you also get the feeling that there's like a 4.5 hour cut out there that Fincher wanted to release?
The 3 sections of 10-minute darkness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't love the length. I don't think it needs to be this long. I don't think it adds that much to be. I think you could cut 30%. It would be just as good.
My body bag, I'm going for, at times, especially kind of early in the movie, it felt like the first few episodes of Game of Thrones, where if you weren't a book reader and you just jumped into Game of Thrones, there was all these motherfucking characters, and you're like, oh my God, there's like this guy, this person, and it was just overwhelming. And I felt like that at the beginning of the movie. It's like, oh shit, we're in Vallejo with this cop now. Oh, we're with Donald Logue. Oh, now we're with the boss from Fight Club. Like we were just like all over the place. And I was like trying to they're mentioning names like when they're talking, and I'm like, wait, who was that? Which guy was that? And it was a little confusing. Eventually you kind of start to get together, but yeah, it kind of, at first it was like, God damn, there's so many people in this movie, and they're talking about them by name. I'm like, I don't remember their names. I just remember, oh, it's the Donald Logue.
You're like, which one of them has the dragons?
All right, my body bag is actually the fact that Dave Toschi, the head detective played by Ruffalo,
The head detective was actually Damon Wayans on A Living Color.
Ruffalo.
there you go.
Ruffalo.
Really got and the real story as far as what I read was that he really got a raw deal as far as he ultimately got accused, and it mentions it in the movie, but he got accused of writing falsely accused of writing one of the Zodiac letters. He brought a little bit of the heat on himself because evidently he wrote anonymous letters to the San Francisco Chronicle praising his own work on the case. Didn't Kevin Durant do something like that?
He had his burner account.
Yeah. So the introduction of the burner accounts. Thank you, Dave Tosky. But but he got the raw on the deal to putting in however X amount of years on the case, and then I think being pushed out of homicide because of his the accusations of him being involved with that Zodiac letter is really rough. But he ended up Steve McQueen's character in Bullock ended up being based off of him, and also Clint Eastwood loosely, as Dirty Harry got based off of Tosky as well. So I think Tosky ended up winning out. Was revered by kind of Hollywood as they were looked up to him by kind of like a hard-nosed detective, and the signature gun straps over the shoulders. That was one of his trademarks. But Tosky got a raw deal there with the Zodiac letter.
I absolutely love the take that he came up with the burner account in 1969. That is awesome. All right. So, Mr. Brad, we are on to
Did you have a body bag?
Nope.
All right.
That's why I skipped it.
He loved the movie. He loved everything about it.
No, I mean, if I had a body bag for this movie, I would piggyback the length of the movie. Typically, I don't get to watch movies until about 9:30. And when I started this movie at 9:30, it didn't end until well into the night. And it was I'd seen it before. I like the movie. It's a little long. I agree that there's some fat that could be cut. Moving on to one of our favorite oldest, would we call them sponsors, or would they be, what would they be?
Yeah, I mean,
I would call them a pending sponsor.
Esteemed
Unintentional
advertisers.
advocate.
Yeah, they'll be sponsoring us at some point. I mean, we know this is going to happen. So we're just kind of like we're promoting them right now, and then they're going to have to pay us back pay for all of our old ones.
I love that take.
Sweet. We got a sweet deal going here.
Cameo owes us so much money.
Throw in some pink and whites, Cameo.
I essentially treat the Cameo section as my children's college savings account. It's just like accruing without anyone else knowing it.
Compounding interest right now.
So Cameo pricing, we've got one really big name, and surprisingly, and then we have one. Of course, we have a former. I'll just go the former first. Adam Goldberg, who has a very small scene in this movie. He was formerly on Cameo. And the one preview video, he had his little sleeve, his tatted sleeves, and he was just standing there talking about something. I was like,
is that the guy that wrote Superbad with Seth Rogen?
No, Adam Goldberg is. He's been in Saving Private Ryan. He's been in Dazed and Confused. Lots of stuff.
He's the one that took over for Robert Downey Jr.'s character in the San Francisco Chronicle.
Yeah. He takes over.
Took his chair in the.
And in Saving
office.
Private Ryan, he got stabbed through the heart, very graphic.
Ooh, that's a great scene.
Rough scene.
All right, so we have 3 characters. I'm going to give you 2 just because, and then I'll let you guys guess the bigger one. Lee Allen's sister-in-law, who was like, hell yeah, that guy's a mess. He needs to be arrested.
Yeah.
Her name's Jules Bruff, and you can talk to her for $30.
Has she been in anything else?
I recognize her. I
really look it up.
Yeah.
And
We
then,
are committed to the research.
yeah, I just got numbers here. I'm a numbers man. Charles Fleischer as Bob Vaughn. So Bob Vaughn, the scariest scene in the movie, in my opinion.
Basement guy?
Basement guy.
Basement man.
Ooh. How much do you think basement guys charging?
I'll give him $20. Some say scary things.
40.
I mean, I feel
I
like
know we got to look at if he's been on Broadway. How many Tonys has he won, and Emmys and things like that.
he looks like he may have starred in a version of the one where the plant eats people.
Little Shop of Horrors.
He did Little Shop of Horrors on Broadway. So he did something because he's $100.
What?
Charles Fleischer, $100.
Dang.
Maybe he forgot it was on there. No one's ever asked him to to say anything.
And who's the big one? Who do you think?
I'm going to say Anthony Edwards.
I wish Goose was on there. Goose could make, Anthony Edwards could make so much money on Cameo. I feel like he would be just rock solid.
Robert
constant.
Downey.
Yeah, it's Iron Man. No. He still owes a Coke dealer from 1984.
Not that big. In fact, when I say it, you guys be like, that guy's not big.
Ooh, I like the misdirection.
Is it Dylan Mulroney?
That seemed like that could have been a good one too, but no. It is the man who actually talks to the Zodiac.
Oh,
that kid. What else is he in?
dude, he's in something else.
No,
He's
no,
got
no,
a
not the
very
kid.
distinct face.
Has a
the grown-up
conversation.
actor.
Actually has a conversation with the fake Zodiac because it wasn't really the Zodiac on the TV show.
Oh, the old man guy?
Melvin Belly is the
the actual guy,
actual
Melvin Belli?
character's name, and it's Brian Cox.
Oh, Brian Cox is.
Oh,
on
yeah.
Cameo?
It was very random. I thought Brian Cox just doesn't seem
Wow.
like a
Super
cameo.
Troopers, man.
That is a big name.
How much is he charging?
Oh, I'd say 150.
2. No, I'm gonna say 3.
I bet you
Let's not get out of
it's
here.
less than Basement Guy,
He's
88.
like Oscar caliber.
Brian Cox for the small. No, I can't say
Paltry
small.
sum.
I cannot say small. It's $325.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
320. What do you?
that's all I'm
Who's
saying.
buying Brian Cox for 2 minutes?
Who is a huge? Yeah, who's a big Brian Cox stan? Like,
yeah.
who's going to be like?
No,
I
this
need
is
to
the
hear
guy
from
that this
guy.
is the guy that was the host on the TV show, not the handwriting expert,
The,
right?
the
Right.
gray haired,
He,
yeah. The
he was
host.
like he was the one requested. Like, I want to talk to this dude.
Well, he's in stuff.
Brian Cox was the
Oh, Brian
original
Cox
Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. He's like
Yeah.
a big, yeah. He's
Brian
a big
Cox has
deal.
been in lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our
All
cameo.
right, Brian Cox. Wow.
312. I was
Big
like,
name.
damn. I never would have thought Brian Cox is like taking out the time to like. write
That's like
messages to
Wesley
him.
Snipes money.
Yeah,
That's serious.
he's right up there with him.
Maybe he's having tax problems.
So almost a guarantee. So I think that's a prerequisite for cameos. If you're having problems with the IRS, it's time to jump on Cameo and make some money for old Uncle Sam. So I really like this movie. I think there's a bunch of stuff that people can that people can connect to this. I think we have a bunch of Fincher connections. So Nick, if we watched this movie and loved it, and we wanted to get that feeling again, what are we going to stream that is out there for free or for a small sum that you have to pay every month?
On Hulu, Gone Girl. Fincher's Gone Girl from 2014 is on Hulu. Stars Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike, Neil Patrick Harris, NPH, Tyler Perry, Carrie Coon, Kim Dickens, and Patrick Fugit. Almost Famous? Fugit?
I think it's Fug It.
I guarantee that's how he says.
That's 100%.
Hey, fuck it.
And for the next pod as well, we can use that one. But yeah, Gone Girl, amazing film. Talk about tension.
I really like Gone Girl. It's
Don't mention
it's a
that
good one.
tension. So that's my
the
pick.
style of Gone Girl and the way that it's shot and some of the cinematography decisions and stuff are first top.
It's
rate.
great.
So it's interesting that my stream recommendation is a movie that I'm sure Fincher watched before he ever did Zodiac, and it's the classic Spike Lee Summer of Sam. And Summer of Sam is it focuses on the Son of Sam killer from New York. Actually, interesting point is that when I had to go back because I remember that he said that the dog was convincing him to kill people in the Son of Sam killer, and then they said that when the guy called in on the TV show, he said his name was Sam, and so I thought Son of Sam, like, was he like a copycat kind of? Then I looked it up and I was like, no, it was just the dog's name, so like that's why he called himself Son of Sam. But yeah, a very interesting movie. Doesn't focus as much on the killer. Focuses on how people are reacting in New York during a heat wave and a blackout and all sorts of different stuff going on.
Kind of the East Coast Zodiac, right?
Yeah, very much. And I mean, was definitely going up to people like at lovers' lanes and shooting them in the head and kind of the same situation. So a very strange movie, very interesting movie, but I really like it. And it's available on some shit called Hoopla. So otherwise you have to probably pay for a rental fee on Amazon, but yeah, Hoopla. If you got Hoopla, if you're one of those Hoopla people,
You 5 people that have Hoopla or know what it is, go
it
check
was
it out.
brand new to me. So yeah,
I
there
think
you go,
we're just
Hoopla.
making up names at this point. You can stream it on Hullabaloo.
Now streaming on
Bonanza
Circular.
time has the mind.
All right.
Oh man, so my streaming rec is on Netflix. This was a made for Netflix movie with Robert Pattinson and the kid that plays Spider-Man. What's his name? Tom Holland. And it's Devil All the Time, streaming on Netflix. I really liked it. Another movie that runs probably a bit longer than it needed to run, but much more. I don't want to say much more compelling, but this movie is obviously fiction. It gets told from a bunch of different point of views, and it's one of the movies that I watched and I thought, here goes another shitty movie that I'm not going to like, and I really, really dug it. So you guys should check it out. A little bit spooky. It's a good one.
I've started it. I got to get back to it.
It's good. Pattinson, when Pattinson comes on the screen, holy crap. He is amazing. He's like a Southern Baptist preacher, and he's got this insane accent, and he's kind of fat. It's so good. It's so good.
So mine's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is also Fincher. This is the American version, and you can see that on Prime or Hulu. And if you don't have either one of those, then what are you even doing with your life? I would also recommend, though, if the whole series. So The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the first in a series of books. I read the original 3 books, which are great. And there's a Swedish made version that are really good, and that you can get all 3. I think you can also stream that on Hoopla.
The first Girl with the Dragon Tattoo Swedish movie is better than the Fincher version.
I agree with that. I think that's right, but I think the Fincher version is great too.
It's
and
also
the sort talk about source material. I mean, the books are terrific. So anyway, go check out The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Well, one last one, Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal as well. Definitely has kind of a same idea of the media and murder, how they deal with it, and it's on DirecTV and AMC Plus. So
Good one.
check that out.
So we are getting long here, guys. And you know what? We're thinking about running out of the video store right now. And right before we leave, we're going to grab a copy of this movie and we're going to throw it into another section. So if we're reshelving or throwing another ending onto this movie, what are we going to do, Brad?
Yeah, it's tough when you have a movie that's based in reality that to make an alternate ending or whatever. But I took a shot.
Tarantino would disagree with you.
That is true. Wait, are you telling me that Hitler was not shot in the face multiple times by 2 gunmen?
All I know is that there was an epic flamethrower fight in LA at some point.
I'm going to shoot you in the face.
All right. So my alternate ending is so they arrest Lee Allen. And this is our little alternate. They arrest Lee Allen, but soon after, another Zodiac killing happens. So now they're like, damn it, we got to release Lee. He wasn't the guy. And then they arrest Rick Marshall and Bob Vaughn. They're like, these guys are working together. Yeah, they're the killers. But all of a sudden, another Zodiac killing occurs. And so they release Vaughn and Marshall. And then the final scene is Gray Smith. He's returning home. All 3 of those dudes are in his house. And they're just staring him down because all 3 of them are the Zodiac killers together.
I love it.
And they're all
The ending to Scream.
Wait a minute.
They all have the ghost face mask on.
But this is, I mean, what I love about that ending
Scooby-Doo
is that
/ Scream.
it's not entirely far-fetched in the sense that a lot of the, like, you know, the conversation around this is that there are multiple Zodiacs that, like, you know, I mean,
Between the handwriting, and different stuff.
well, and just
copycats.
copycatting and hard to tell who's claiming credit for what. That, you know, in a true sense, right? If we take the full body of work, so to speak, by Zodiac, it's really has to be multiple people. Even if they weren't, they may not have been coordinating, but I like it that they might have been.
There you go.
All right. I do not have a reshelf. I got an alternate ending as well, and it's in the Quentin Tarantino alternate history universe.
Lots of feet shots.
Lots of feet. Quentin and his feet.
Eating burgers.
Last shot is the guy from Kevin from The Office's foot, just like a real close up on it.
Yeah. 3 different 15-minute, dialogue sections between Tosky and Gray Smith, and compelling shit. But Gray Smith and Avery, after their first, after the Aquavelva conversation in the bar, they're besties, and they say, we're going to solve this shit, and we're going to go after the key to this case. which I didn't mention in my body bag, which is just the fact that the one guy that could have maybe identified the Zodiac, they just mentioned a couple of times, oh, he skipped town.
Yeah,
he skipped town. We can't find him. Skip town. And then at the very end, he comes back around, as far as the movie's concerned, identifies him, and it's like, well, fuck.
Yeah, they should have just checked Cameo.
Yeah. Right.
Jimmy Simpson is not on Cameo. Sorry.
Graysmith and Avery, they basically say, we got to find this guy. And they go on a search for him. And it's kind of a worldwide search. Like they find him somewhere exotic, like Bali or some shit, where he's just like checked out, off the grid. They bring him back, and they're not even messing around with cops. Like they want him to identify, and they get him to Alan at the very end, thinking, and Avery and Graysmith, are naive enough to think that this guy's just going to identify him and be okay and not be traumatized. But homeboy's packing heat, and he comes in hot, and he just starts firing away at. So it's a Hitler moment, alternate universe, and starts just blasts him over the counter. Smokes the Zodiac, and credits.
Dude.
Yeah, that's my alternate history.
I love a good Hitler moment. I thought you were going to go. This brings me back to Scotchler's list, but. I thought you were going to say that RDJ and Gyllenhaal just go on like a buddy, trek across the country trying to find.
Is this Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure meets Zodiac?
I thought maybe it was like
I'm in
Due Date Part 2.
Yeah, Avery gets Graysmith to try coke for the first time or weed or something in like Amsterdam, and it's all over.
I love it.
Thank you guys so much for coming out and discussing this movie. Please check this one out. Check out our streaming recommendations. Go on to our social medias. We got BVK Podcast. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Come check us out. Yes, Instagram, all that stuff. Like, subscribe. If you guys feel like it, go on to iTunes. If you listen to something that you liked, go on there and leave us a little review. Maybe even 5 stars. I don't know. We'll even take 4 stars.
Or just say things about my voice.
Just be like,
get you going.
The bass in Nate's voice really resonates with me.
There could be all sorts of ASMR recommendations. We want this guy taking all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. At what point do we think that we're going to get our first email with our food requests?
Oh, wait, for you to eat things?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
We're waiting for mayo. We're waiting.
I hope it's either creamy or super phallic, or both.
Are we? So you guys you're ready to draft so that I can win again? Is that where we're at? Because that's part 2 coming at you in a couple of days.
So
all you gotta do is wait 2 days.
This episode is going to come out on Tuesday, 2 days from when you're listening to this. You're going to hear the Draft Podcast. I can't wait to get into it. And thanks for coming with us to Bev's Video Kingdom, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
See you Thursday.
Out.
I can brag your favorite podcast. The stars